see something, say something.
I learned over the years that some of the greatest lessons I've ever learned came from the smallest things, and even the greater of those are the ones that I didn't even know that I was learning a lesson from. I heard a wise man once say that he could show me the light in the strangest of places if I looked at it right, and I really took that to heart, because lately I've been really looking for the light inside of me, wondering what has made me me. As I look through the pages of my life, it's like parts of it doesn't seem like it was real, like it was a dream. But the only way that I know that it's real is because the lessons that I learned in those moments still last to this day. I've also learned that my life is pretty rich with some experience, and I've been blessed with a lot of amazing adventures. I've never been a really fancy person. I don't really care for it that much. And going to a fancy dinner was never something that we really ever did. But when we went to Berlin, we actually went to one of those fancy restaurants, and I learned a lifelong lesson over a meal. I don't really remember what meal I had, but I do remember the appetizers. And I also remember it fondly because it's one of the few memories I have with my grandfather. When the waiter came and took our orders, I remember my dad had ordered an appetizer, and I had been so fixated on all of the decor that had been around us, but I remember my mom leaning over to him and him telling her, "Just don't tell him, it'll be okay." My dad's always been a big fan of having us push our comfort levels, especially with food. He loved making us try new things, and he learned really quick that he had to be really tricky about certain things. When the appetizer had arrived, my dad had one of the biggest smiles I've ever remembered seeing on his face. He had ordered a bunch of escargot, and none of us really put two and two together that they were snails. I pride myself usually on being observant, and I'm not quite sure how I didn't realize that these things were in snail shells. I just thought it was some sort of fancy way of serving food. After he had demonstrated to us how to eat them, I remember being really hesitant on that first one, but the second I put it in my mouth, the most amazing flavor explosion happened. It was like the most juicy piece of steak I had ever had. After that first one, I just couldn't get enough, and I was just down in one after another after another. When there was only like a couple left, I looked at my mom and I realized like she was really disgusted at every bite. When my dad couldn't get her to eat one, I realized something was terribly wrong, and I started to look at the plate and realized that I was eating snails, and I freaked out. I was absolutely disgusted. I couldn't believe that he had let us eat snails, and I didn't want to have anything to do with the last few. And he looked at me and he said, "You'd been eating them this whole time, and you've loved them." After a little more convincing, I hesitantly ate the rest of them. But that very first one that I took after knowing that it was a snail, I realized something. That flavor was just as good and just as amazing as it was before I even knew they were snails. And ever since then, I've realized that if I go into a situation or an experience with a judgment or a predetermination on things, that I might miss what the most amazing part of it is, and also might miss a secret lesson. Anyways, thanks for listening, and thanks to all my subscribers. I really appreciate all you. Always love. Peace.